I'll take a few moments to explain our approach and provide some practical examples and the challenges we face. Now, I want to begin with a statement which I hold very dear to my heart and something which I'm trying to ingrain within our organization. And the statement is quite simple, is that we cannot exist without nature, but nature can exist without us. Now, it's a pretty simple statement, but it's a profound statement in that a business that's existed for 150 years, if it wants to continue, it has to act differently if it wants to be around for another 150 years. Now, this is a fundamental truth, and we believe it should be ingrained in every activity we do. And for some obscure reason, nature has become invisible. And people have somehow lost sight of it. Now, what my sort of activity in the last year has been is to make nature visible, to make it real, and to let the business and people that we're working with along our supply chain know it's there. So it's important that we do three things. We respect nature, we love it, and we preserve it. And that's really quite fundamental in our approach. Now, Nestlé is committed to develop its business in a safe way, and natural capital, in particular biodiversity and ecosystems, are incorporated. We recognize it's a provider of vital resources and services. Now, this complements all the policy statements we have. We have our business principles, our policy on environmental sustainability, and our natural capital commitment. The company operates in the company has over 450 factories in over 80 countries, employs about 340,000 people, and we're producing over 10,000 different products. And the company we procure from roughly about 700,000 farmers. So it is the world's largest food and drinks industry. So what is it and the way we operate? I just want to go through this. This is our methodology of working with sustainability. And for a company to be successful over time and create value for stakeholders, it also must create value for society. And that is the definition we use for our model, which is called creating shared value. So let's just quickly go through it. We start with the bottom base, which is compliance. And this is, before we jump onto sustainability in any of our sites, we make sure that compliance is met in the first instance. And we have our own universal set of compliances to adhere to as well. So it's not just external compliance, it's also internal compliance. And it's one of the bedrocks of the organization that compliance and local compliance must be met before we move on into the journey. And sustainability is the middle layer, and that's protect the future, or what we generally mean by sustainability, meet the needs of the present without compromising future generations. And this can range from simple things to very complex things. And I think, from zero to landfill to very complicated life cycle assessments, which look at whole supply chains and become very detailed, and work on natural capital, which I'll explain, and how we're using renewables, what we're doing. So there's no one standard program that fits everything. It is very much locally driven, which market you're in and what you're doing. At the top, we focus our activities on three key areas: nutrition, water, and rural development. And these are core to our business strategy and operations for obvious reasons. Without water, basically, there's no food we can produce. So these are sort of fundamental truths within the business, and these are things we really have to look after. Now, we do have a clear policy on natural capital, and the policy covers. We also have policies on no deforestation, water stewardship, animal welfare, and there's a whole raft of these. So when I talk about compliance, that's where they sit, and that's where we have to meet them. But just a quick summary, and what I'll do in that summary, I'll just give some practical examples of how they apply in the UK and Ireland, which is where I work. So a natural capital policy starts off, it says, act as a responsible steward for natural capital. And that basically gives us the sort of the open space to say, right, what is natural capital meaning in the UK and what do we have to do? And we've done quite a lot of the easy things, and like resource efficiency, like water reduction, CO2 reductions. We've also looked at where our impacts are within communities and societies. So, for example, in the UK, we've reduced our water reduction by 40%. Since 2006, we've reduced our CO2 reduction by 15%. And we're now gearing up renewables. So we're up to 8%, but we want to get higher. We have a target to get to 10% in the next few years. The second part of our natural capital is report on risk and responses. And this is really important that we become transparent in what we're doing. And one of Nestle's, in the last few years, what Nestle's become quite good at is becoming more transparent. It is now opening up and stating what we're doing. So as well as showing what we're doing good, we can also show areas of weaknesses and where we need to improve. So if anyone has the courage, they can read our CSV report, which is 468 pages. And the good thing is we are beginning to be recognized for it. Oxfam rated us on top of their sustainability scorecard, which was quite an achievement. And also we're trying to inform our consumers better, and we have started new strategies using social media. So if anyone does purchase a Kit Kat in the next few days, a 4-finger Kit Kat, you'll see a QIR code at the back of it. You can scan that code and that will tell you the full life cycle assessment of that chocolate bar. So it will tell you the social impacts, the environmental impacts, and what we're doing. And lastly, I think the most important on our natural capital is that it says work with stakeholders. And this is really important. We work with a host of stakeholders. In particular in the UK, I work very much at a local level with the Wildlife Trust and at a national level. We work with Cambridge CISL, with Surrey University, Imperial Universities, and a whole host of local providers. And this is the key, we believe, in going forward. I recruited 12 graduates 2 years ago for sustainability environment because we do believe this is an area that we do need to strengthen up. So it has been quite a journey. Now, the concept of natural capital for me has been around since it's been around for a time, for quite a while, since the late 90s, I think. And it's recently gathered a lot of interest in business, in the business world. And in terms of why, it's an easy concept to conceptualize. And the phrase is really easily accessible. It's just got 2 words. And businesses like that. They like brevity, and they like words that they can understand. So it does make a lot of sense. The word natural capital makes a lot of sense to businesses. Now, it can, in terms of stocks, it can be quantified and quality quantified. So that's an area where we've put a lot of our work in terms of stocks. But we realize ecosystem services and flows is much more complex. We do recognize that, so we're not really that. But in recent work I've been doing, if I asked a scientist, tell me what natural capital stocks there are in the landscape and how do I manage them? And we suddenly got an answer saying, well, you've got to cut across multiple disciplines. So we have to talk to hydrology, geology, ecology. So it's not a one-stop shop. It's a really quite complex area. And I think that's where we're getting to, is that there's more questions for us than there's answers. But I hope soon with the academic community and with civil society that there will be a universal approach to it. Now, so businesses, I think, are already taking the step working with academics and with the NGOs, and we're trying to get a better understanding of the approach. Now, a few years ago, I wrote a paper called Loving Nature. You can see the Indian inheritance in me, in that nature and love is quite important. And I came out with this model here. It's a landscape approach to natural capital. And the way to really picture this is to take the operations and have a ripple out effect into the landscape. So we know what we're good at. We're good at operations, and we understand supply chains, but the other areas we need to work on. And we've employed sort of a multidisciplinary approach to this, and we've carried it out with partnerships, in particular with the Wildlife Trust, with Imperial College, and a business called Wild Business. And what we've understood is that we have to work with a range of partners in this landscape approach, and that we have to work with local communities, we have to work with people who might not even consume our products. We can't be leaders all the time, we have to be followers. So if someone's already leading, we can follow them and get an understanding from them. We understand that this will provide health benefits, skills, and improve conditions for wildlife and nature. We've already started a pilot in Buxton, in the north of England, so if anyone drinks Buxton water, we've started this pilot there. And it's around this 4-point plan for reducing impacts at site, restoring of nature within a region, and development of local people and community. Now, one thing we've learned, this program is designed to ensure that natural capital is increased in a way that is sensitive to local operations, stakeholders, positive for the regional economy, and resilient to environmental change. That's climate change. So let me just quickly go through this. So in terms of operations, that's something we know and we control. We understand about environmental impacts of our operation. We understand employee engagement, and we understand our supply chains. So we can do quite a lot there, and we've already done a lot of work. The area we're moving into climate change, we've just carried out a whole adaptation policy and work on climate adaptation. We understand mitigation is a long-term thing, but adaptation is really quite key. And one of the key things we've done, we've had some real good wins introducing SUD systems, which are both beneficial for us for flooding, but also for nature. So, there's a lot of wins we can do if we really bring the sort of landscape approach to this. We're also looking at sort of our watershed areas and what we can do with that. And in terms of nature, what we're trying to do is restore damaged and fragmented areas of habitat, recreate habitats, and natural corridors and stepping stones in the landscape. We want to reconnect these habitats and linking them to green space in local communities. And I'll give you an example of that. But also, if there's any man-made objects, like stone walls, we want to make sure the benefits they bring continues, and looking at that. So it's not just, it's more of a holistic approach across everything. Now, the approach emphasizes ecosystem as a whole. That is, nature conservation cannot be separated from people and communities. And this is very important, that nature conservation restoration supports business operations rather than obstructing them. That long-term trends such as climate change must be considered. In addition, there's a real enthusiasm for myself to use science and research as a base of carrying out these assessments and developing our strategies. It is an innovative approach, I think. And for example, we've created, at a very simplistic level, butterfly meadows at all our sites. Now, it sounds very basic, we started off with 1/3 of an acre, now we have 80 acres across our supply chain, and it's growing. So it's really important that when we take on these projects, we can really scale them up. And that's what business wants to do. It doesn't just want to keep things, but we can scale projects up. There's a chap called Andy Griffith sitting up there from Forden who can talk to you about this. So our strength is that we're taking a real interest in it. Our weakness is that we're not connecting them up properly, we're not getting to the right research and data, and there is a huge weakness in performance measures. And I congratulate people like the Caring Group and the work they've done on Puma, because those are really groundbreaking work which has gone on, and really need more case studies from that. So in summary, Companies need to recognize the dependency on nature, understand the current status, target at reducing impacts, and make meaningful responses. We need to make nature visible. We can do this by focusing on a few topics where we can make meaningful differences, and most importantly, we must disclose our progress. Collaboration is key between companies, governments, investors, NGOs, academics, communities. Without any of this collaboration, progress is really going to be slow. We also need to find universal measurements for reporting and disclosing. I know there's a lot of work going on, but if that could be speeded up, it'd be great for us. But that doesn't stop us doing the work we're doing. So I'm open to criticism and say, well, this might not be great, but I don't want to stand still when I can visibly see things going wrong. So, and finally, if we need to, in fact, this is the message I really come out with, and I'm saying the same message to you as I say to everyone. We need society to fall back in love with nature, and I think it's our duty to make nature visible again and respect it. Okay, thank you.